We highlighted the multiple crises under President Joe Biden.
The crisis at our southern border.
The economic crisis.
The border crisis.
The national security crisis.
The Biden administration continues to turn a blind eye to this crisis.
It's yet another crisis that they refuse to confront.
Our energy crisis.
And look, this border crisis is unfortunately one of many crises.
The budget crisis.
The crisis is not in Europe.
We can tell you we see the crisis clearly.
We are dispatching teams to look into all of these crises that are afoot. In case there was any question there about GOP messaging, the New York Times puts it this way, quote, for divided House Republicans, outrage may be the tie that binds, at least their leaders hope so. Still overwhelmingly in the thrall of Donald Trump, they have learned over the past 4 years that grievance loudly expressed carries political weight, especially with their core voters. Still with us, Don Calloway, Mark McKinnon. Mark, anytime we use the word crisis, I think we're duty-bound to use the old Rahm Emanuel phrase, never let a crisis go to waste. But what about crises of your own perception? What if this is indeed, absent any ideas or policy, if this is how they're going to go, if this is how they're going to run back home in 2022?
Well, that's become the default for the Republican Party, Brian. It's all about grievance, and now the catchword of the day, as you so accurately have captured, is crisis. Everything's a crisis, including anything and everything that would have occurred even if Donald Trump had still been president. I mean, hacks on pipelines, all sorts of things, natural disasters, climate issues that are happening, and drought. Of course, it's all Joe Biden's fault that he doesn't control the sun, but. Or that they believe that he does control the sun, I guess. But the fact is that it's all about grievance. There's nothing forward-looking. And, they even jumped on Biden over his international trip, not being tough enough on Putin. And that's how do you pass the laugh test on not being tough enough on Putin when these guys were licking the boots of the guy who didn't say one negative word about Putin for 4 years?
Yeah, I urge our viewers to stick around to our last segment. We may have a word or two on that very topic. Don, I want to go back to the subject matter in our last segment, considering it is a large part of your life's work. We had our very smart mutual friend, A.B. Stoddard, on a few days back, and I'm going to paraphrase her at great danger. She said, in effect, a lot of the Democrats are getting played. They've put all their chips, all their attention, all their noise on the casting of votes. The game being played in state houses more quietly is about the counting of votes and party control, the party ability to draw the curtain while votes are tallied. And Don, what is the remedy for that if this becomes law at the state house level?
Well, I think that the first and most important remedy is the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Joyce White Vance, my fellow erudite Alabamian, mentioned a moment ago that the John Lewis Voting Rights Act is perhaps the most important thing because it restores Section 5 of 1965 Voting Rights Act and the pre-clearance notions so that states can't do a whole lot of the shenanigans either on a state regulatory level or on a state legislative level without pre-clearance from the Department of Justice. That means any substantive procedural change to voting procedures on the state, local, county, municipal level would have to be cleared by the Department of Justice. My mentor and good friend, Deval Patrick, of the Civil Rights, former director of the Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Department of Justice, formerly led the pre-clearance process. Now Kristen Clark would lead the pre-clearance process if it were restored under Section 5. So I think we have to recognize the interplay here between federal legislation. And if Joe Manchin is on board for nothing else, he's got to be on board for pre-clearance, which he is in the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. So before states can enact a whole lot of the shenanigans on the back end, on the county, on the Arizona audit type stuff, you have to be able to restrict their ability to make the changes from the beginning. Secondly, I think that before you can even get to the count, you have to open up access to the ballot box. And so I'm not even really worried about the counting procedures on the back end because we have lawyers. We have Sherilyn Ifill and the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, to handle things like that, where there is non-integrity, and again, I hate to use the word for the third time this segment, but shenanigans on the counting process. But I think it's critical that we restore pre-clearance on the front end, and I think it's crucial that you really thwart a whole lot of these ballot box contraction bills on the which decide who gets the opportunity to vote in the first place, because it's very, very difficult to throw out votes when they've actually been properly cast. It's very, very difficult to mess around on the counting process. But to be clear, that's what Brian Kemp did in stealing the election from should-be governor and hopefully one day Governor Stacey Abrams in 2018 in Georgia.